So the first question for you is, Moglix is referred to the unexpected unicorn of India. How did you identify the B2B segment of industry as a rising star?
I spent actually 5 years with Google running Asia, and I think therefore at the heart of seeing the entire consumer commerce revolution, there you start to look at whether you want to deliver your mobile phone, laptop, clothes, everything to a grocery being delivered at home at the click of a button. And my question, having traversed and seen Alibaba and many others, was why are we not doing this across the B2B sector and manufacturing? And it seemed like a curious problem to think about. And as I thought about the problem more and more, it seemed like inevitable that sooner or later this needs to happen, and somebody got to do it. So it felt like an exciting problem for me to solve. And I believe when we started, we were among the very, very few people who thought B2B can be an interesting thing, and businesses will change towards digital buying behavior. But yeah, 7 years on, businesses are starting to come on board. There's still a long journey, but yeah, there is clearly a momentum which has built on B2B and building like a B2C as it was in 2012 or 13.
Definitely. I mean, weren't you a little worried how it would go because B2B was so undiscovered and still so raw, the idea of that as a business? So what were you feeling while starting the company?
So as an entrepreneur, you can't start into obvious problems which everyone sees it, because if you start and do exactly what 20 other people are doing, then your likelihood of success goes down. And second, at least in the startup and the venture world, you got to be doing something which is different than others. So invariably, when you start, there are going to be believers, there are going to be non-believers, and an entrepreneur tends to be an extreme optimist and believer on what they are doing. Otherwise, they'll not be able to do it.
Definitely. So my next question for you was, are your personal ideologies in line with your business ideologies? How do you navigate a difference in between those ideologies if they are different?
No, so I think I have very strong personal ideologies which are around integrity, uh, uh, technology being the heart of change that the world will see, and eventually making India, whether it is in terms of manufacturing, infrastructure, a stronger powerhouse. And I think, and that is one of the reasons I probably selected Moglix as a area to be in, because closer your personal ideologies and mission goals in life to the business opportunity you want to pursue, you can do it longer.
Definitely.
If those are contradictory or far away, you can probably still do it, but you may or may not have the longevity around it.
Yeah.
So if you want to go for the long game, and this is going to be tens of years of play, you got to be pursuing something which you feel, at least. It's just like as a college kid, or as a school kid, you're choosing engineering versus medical or something, right? So those are choices where will you be passionate about engineering for 10, 20, 30, 40 years of your life versus medical, right? So you are making those choices as an entrepreneur, and more so I would say for the sector, the specific idea may evolve, but at least you are making a commitment towards the sector that you want to be part of.
Definitely, 100%. I mean, yeah, that sounds totally right. I mean, for having your personal ideologies in line with your business ideologies just makes it easier for you, definitely, when running your company. So the next question was, how difficult was it to join the Unicorn Club? I mean, with each step of funding, how did you manage to reach that last step and acquire that funding? Did you have to sell your product to Falcon Edge and Harvard Management, or was it an easy grab of sell?
No, so I think we didn't have to do hard sell. I think we were already there as a company, so I don't think that is as big an issue. I think whether that is the goal that with which we are pursuing the company or valuation, the answer is no, because I think you just keep on building your business to be stronger, bigger, and then valuations will happen. And even we are still today a private company, but as you go public, because valuations will go up and down. But the key thing that remains is what is the business fundamentals and how are you driving that side of the growth and so on and so forth. So I think, yeah, it was incidental. It happened. It always gives a nice feeling, because I think you get more and more sort of external people believing in what you're building, but it all comes with a greater level of responsibility as well. So therefore, every step in the milestone is a larger responsibility, both to your investor, customer, and the overall ecosystem.
Definitely, with more growth comes more responsibility. So, right. And the next question is, with your plans to grow global, which markets are you currently looking at, and where do you think Moglix will now flourish? Furthermore, if you are looking at entering other markets, what tools do you use to evaluate the markets?
No, so I think um, like consumers, I think when you start to think of businesses, you would say that the business problem you started to solve in India, does it exist in other markets, right? So that's the question. And second, is that market large enough? Third, do you have capabilities, strengths with which you can enter the market and possibly win in the market? Right? Those are the key dimensions of it. So does the Moglix problem exist in many markets? The answer is yes. Uh, are those nuanced slightly different than what we may have in India? The answer is yes. Do we have strengths and capabilities to solve in those markets? Partially true. I mean, you have a certain learning, but then there are going to be local market nuances, because as an operations company, you need to go and solve for logistics, supply chain, business relationships, all of those in different markets. So now, therefore, it becomes imperative that you take that journey in a cautious manner and keep expanding. It's like we have launched UAE last year, so I think we continue to sort of double down in that market, and those learnings eventually help us develop a stronger India business as well. So I think it is exciting. Only next few years will tell which markets we end up succeeding and flourishing, but we definitely believe the problem exists in many markets outside of India as well.
So, as of right now, are you looking at any other countries to, like, for right now, to start Moglix?
No, I think we are still early. I think we want to get it right. It's a couple of markets which we have been, and once we do that, I think it builds a stronger template of how you can launch multiple such markets.
Definitely. So my next question was, nowadays mental health, I think, is a very big subject in our everyday lives. As a company, how do you manage mental health in employees?
So I think it is there is two elements of it. I think there is a mental health in a Maslow hierarchy when you have your hunger satisfied, and
Right.
there is a mental health when your hunger is not satisfied, right? So I believe as a country we are far from where people have achieved sort of both financial, social security before starting to think about mental health. I think, yes, COVID health was one of the issues where the mental health was important. But as COVID is gone, people have to get back to thinking about what do they need to do in terms of better financial and social security, which will come out of working more and sort of like contributing more into the organizations that they are building and so on and so forth. So I think uh, at least we as a country probably have to be very careful that we have not solved many other things in Maslow's hierarchy before we can solve for some of the Western countries' mental health problems. And thankfully, India is well blessed because we have a stronger family system than many of those countries where the loneliness and seclude kind of behaviors itself causes a lot of anxiety in a tough environment.
Right, definitely. To me, I mean, if your mental health is great, then your work is also better. So, is there any way that you motivate your employees? And if there is, how?
So the one mantra that we use and we have used in there are things under your control and there are things that are not under your control. Most people who face far more sort of anxiety, uh, kind of are more afraid, so on and so forth, are because of things not under their control. So we say that you should not worry about things that are not under the control till that happen. If it happens, then solve. There will be a solution that one can try and figure out. Just focus on what is under your control and keep moving forward, because you can always worry about that world is coming to an end, but that's anyways not under your control. So if it happens, it will happen. And if it does not happen, then you should not be losing your sleep over it.
Definitely. I mean, that's amazing. I especially love the mantra that your company goes by. So, my next question is, do you have a favorite book? And if you do, which one is it? And would you recommend it to my age group?
So I have not been an avid book reader. Uh, you could say I didn't have patience to sort of like sit through and read large books. I tend to read a lot of articles. That is so I tend to read news. Read about macros. I read about technology advances. I subscribe to technology newsletters. I mean, that's I like reading management newsletters. So I would say, at least for me, because I don't read fiction. So so that's another thing. Uh, so I don't know. I think as a teenage, I think you should start to look at enough of starting to read Economic Times, starting to read um, technology newsletters in areas which you are passionate about, or if you are passionate about management, I mean, starting to read management. HBR is a fantastic resource if you want to read management. And then engineering actually gets diversified into multiple things. If you want to read about automotive, there is PT Auto. I mean, there are all of these sort of publications which give articles about what's happening in the industry and what technology is coming. Also, at least as a kid, I used to read a lot of research journals, which typically in the library nobody reads, but I used to read them a lot because that was exciting. You read one paper published by a researcher about whatever technology development they're doing, algorithms they're solving for. Not necessarily sure whether that's for the school kids, but in college definitely. I highly recommend people to go over the research magazines and articles because they provide the level of depth, the level of technology advancement which may affect in future, so on and so forth.
We'll definitely keep that in mind and we'll definitely start reading more articles. Is there any newsletters you can recommend? Any of your favorites?
I think HBR would be good. I mean, like particularly for management stuff, I think HBR is fantastic. On technology, it is actually very diverse. So I mean, like if you want to read about startups, I think TechCrunch is very interesting. Obviously, you'll have to filter it because sometimes it's too optimistic, and behind many of the optimism, there is also like 99% failures, right? So TechCrunch is very interesting. In India, your story is very interesting if you want to follow the startup world, kind of what is happening. But then there are IEEE is another one which I used to read a lot in school and college. Very strong sort of publications and multiple publications on the development across electronics and electrical engineering, even I think computer science. So so those would be few that would come to mind for me.
Okay, we'll definitely have a look at them and we'll start reading them. Thank you so much for your recommendation. So, my last
Uh,
and final question for you is, what advice would you give to the younger generation to enable them to look at joining the business world to make a positive change for the good of our country?
See, I think there are two things I want to remember because we sometimes get carried away by like that everyone wants to solve the environment problem. But
Right.
if you look at it, I think as a country where we are, I mean, the first problem that we need to solve is we need to increase our GDP. Because
Right.
if you start to increase GDP, our ability to invest back into environment and many of the things will increase. And increase of GDP is like simply creating jobs. I mean, more jobs that we create. Uh, so while it may sound as simple as it is, but I think if the younger generation continues to create more jobs, we will be better as a society. And then among few of the entrepreneurs or few of the younger generation, they can also get resources access to solve for other societal problems of poverty, other societal problems of environment, other societal problems of getting better healthcare access, so on and so forth. But principally, we have to create more jobs. We have to
Right.
we have to work hard for it, and we have to make sure that we continue to grow our GDP as a country.
Now, with the new generation and education increasing in our country so much, I think that should follow and more jobs will be created. As now, I think mostly, at least in the urbanized areas, education is becoming more prominent. So that is something that we should look forward to in our country. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for agreeing to this interview, and I will definitely keep all the things you said in my head and in my mind. But thank you so much. That was Mr. Rahul Garg, founder of Moglix and an inspiration to young Indian entrepreneurs. Here are two of my key learnings from my chat. First, an entrepreneur cannot aim to solve obvious problems. You have to do something that's different. Those of us who are starting our careers and entering business often wonder which direction to take. The path that others don't take could be the right one for us. So instead of thinking of following the crowd, we should start thinking about what we can do that's different from the rest, even if that involves taking risks. Second, don't worry about problems that are too big for you to solve. Focus on what you can and keep moving forward step by step. As youngsters, we face many unknown situations, such as exams, interviews, and big career choices. Such things can be very stressful for us and could make us afraid of taking decisions. I thought Mr. Rahul's mantra for stress reduction was perfect. Instead of getting demotivated by big problems, keep moving forward by taking small steps one at a time. Talking to Mr. Rahul Garg has been an inspiring experience. He is a perfect role model for youngsters because he kept his focus on building his strengths. It did not stop till he created India's latest unicorn. If you enjoyed watching, please do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll be releasing my next Leadership Speaks podcast very soon. Till then, think positive, have big goals, and focus on the road ahead.